I've got 529.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to call to order this regular meeting of the Perrysburg Board of Education, Monday, August 21st, 2023. I know Miss Eubank is stuck in traffic, but on her way, so we will start with roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer.
Here.
Mrs. Eubank. Dr. Ruffert.
Here.
Mr. Pullman.
Here.
Mr. Bennington.
Here. I ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As is our custom, I will start with the safety briefing. Perrysburg Schools welcomes you to the Commodore Building, and we thank you for attending tonight's Board of Education meeting. We care about the safety of our students, staff, families, and guests. Please note that there are exits on both east and west sides of the cafeteria. In case of an emergency, an AED is located just outside the cafeteria doors. You are located at 140 East Indiana Avenue. Thank you for joining us tonight and supporting Perrysburg Schools. Next, I will take a motion to adopt the proposed agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Pullman, Ms. Larimer. Roll call.
Mr. Pullman.
Yes.
Ms. Larimer.
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert.
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes, agenda passes. So we are starting our 2023-2024 school year, but it looks like we've got some cleanup on recognitions from the previous school year. So, Mr. Hostler, if you would start us off.
Thank you very much. And so this evening, we are again recognizing students for some outstanding achievement, both in the classroom and outside the classroom, which is really part of Perrysburg's DNA. So we're grateful for that. At this time, I'd like to begin with our recognition of the 2023 Ohio Seal of Biliteracy recipients. And Ms. Gerber, if you would mind kicking us off today. And we understand that there are some students who might be starting their first day of college today, so that might be a little difficult for them to make it back, but we'll make sure that we get the award to them. So, Mrs. Gerber,
thank you, Mr. Hostler. It's really an honor and a pleasure for me to present the Seal of Biliteracy recipients. There were 43 this year, which is a number of which we should be very proud as a district. It's extremely difficult to earn the Seal of Biliteracy. Students have to demonstrate a high level of proficiency in speaking, listening, reading, and writing. They have to be at the intermediate high level at a minimum in 3 of the areas, and they could be at intermediate mid in 1 area. What intermediate high means is that students can speak or write in paragraph level length discourse with a variety of tenses, rich and varied vocabulary, and minimal errors. So it's quite impressive that they have achieved this goal. One of the reasons we have to wait until now to recognize the students is because you can alternatively earn the seal with a 4 or a 5 on the AP exam. And those scores come out in maybe mid-July, the 10th, 11th, something like that. So it's hard to make the July board meeting for those. So, c'est la vie. Anyway, here are our award recipients, and I will read them. And if you are here, students, please come up. I have a beautiful certificate for you. And we do mail the certificates to students who are unable to come. All right, see, heavy set. So we have, in Spanish, Neela Azizi, Maxwell Baca, who was advanced in all areas. Advanced is higher than intermediate high, and is extremely impressive to get that in all areas. Naranjan Bhagwat, Davika Bavzar, Leo Crawford, Brooke Dawdlin, Anna Dolly, Ethan Duschel, Ethan Helms, Alan Jimenez, Christian Kohler, Ethan Linkus, Alessandro Martinez Leon, Bryce Mater, Jose Orense Isturiz, Kendra Pattenberg, Caitlin Patterson, Aubrey Petrie, Kendra Reddick, Catherine Sandberg, Ella Siberson, Enrique Souza, who was also advanced in all areas in Spanish, Isabella Stachyak, Matthew Stewart, advanced in all areas, Jacob Sterling, advanced in all areas, Annika Wright, advanced in all areas, Nicholas Yu, advanced in all areas, and Sam Zachel. Okay, then we have, in French, Mona Abdulaziz, Miriam Abouhif, Evan Boyers, Alyssa Connors, Julianne Schramm, who was advanced in all areas, Aisha Sadiq, and I think she is here. Yay! Aisha Touré, Shea Vaquera, and Arlen Wise. In Chinese, we have Andrew Chung, Cindy Ma, and Boyang Zhang. In Portuguese, Jose Orense Isturiz. I'm sorry, Jose. He was my student too, and it's Jose in French. Désolé. Enrique Souza, and in Arabic, Mary Estefan. Those are our Seal of Biliteracy recipients for the 2022-2023 school year.
Would like, before you step away, we would like to get a quick picture if possible. So
I'm afraid you're going to have to come back up
so
front.
sorry. You almost made it out the door, so.
I know.
You squeak like I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to all. No easy task, and it's great to hear all the names.
Next on the agenda, we are recognizing the Perrysburg High School girls 4x8 relay team from this past track season. And we'll let Coach Monheim tell a little bit about the team and their finish. And we'll ask Mr. Monheim to step up. And also want to recognize Coach Edge, who's the head girls track coach this upcoming season, who's here to support the team. So, Coach Edge.
Yes, when I walked in tonight and saw Coach Edge, I thought that he was going to be doing this. My wife, Andrea, was the girls' head track coach, and she asked me to do this on her behalf because I actually coached the 4 athletes that we're going to recognize, though she's kind of the boss. but she's turned those duties over to Coach Edge. So next year, Coach Edge, you'll be up here doing these things. First of all, thanks to the board. Thanks to Mr. Hosser for the opportunity to recognize these young ladies. I know it's been a few months. We finished the season the first weekend of June, and it was crazy smoking hot weather, and we practiced today for cross country and crazy smoking hot weather. And if I'm sweating and it's disgusting, I'm sorry, but we just finished 45 minutes about 15 minutes ago. So the girls, you guys look a lot better than I feel right now. So thank you for getting yourself under control. So a little bit about this team. In track and field, this group of girls is highly competitive, and in this area, there's just not a ton of competition. So we really didn't put this team together until the NLL championship meet, which is way towards the end of the season. That was the first time they ran together as a group, and they won that meet handedly. The following week, they won the district meet. The week after that was the regional meet, where we saw our first competition of the year, and we battled for a second place runner-up finish there. And so we made the state meet. We were one of 20 teams in the state of Ohio that made the Division I girls state 4x8, and top 8 girls teams make the podium and are considered all Ohio. And this quartet finished 7th. So they are our newest addition to the all Ohio track team. So I will bring them up one at a time. I think I'll try to do this in the order that they ran. Our lead leg was Natalie Sanders. Natalie, come on up. A lot of these girls probably look familiar to you. They've been up here a few times for other reasons. She's up here pretty much every 3 months, so get used to that. Our second leg, I was having a hard time thinking of our second leg, Laura Vallette. Running our third leg was Hannah Kirsten. And running the anchor leg, Ava Beeks. The other impressive fact about this group is they're all back. So they were all underclassmen, and I got to believe they'll be moving a little further up that podium this year. So a huge congrats to this group. I also want to recognize Hannah. If Hannah could step out, you'll have time for pictures. Hannah also qualified for the state meet in the 3,200 meter run. So that's the 2 mile for those that aren't familiar with the meters. Hannah, 2 years ago, Hannah was a JV runner on our track team, truly a JV runner. And in 2 years, she's put the work in to become one of the best 2-milers in the state of Ohio, and she proved that with her state qualification this past spring. So congrats to Hannah. That's all I have. Time.
Mr. Pullman?
What were their splits?
Congratulations, ladies.
Get one without. And why don't you guys hold a certificate? Let's give you yours.
You can tell those girls are having fun.
And Coach Monheim, before you step away, so cross-country preview was this Saturday, so maybe just a quick word about the team's performance.
Yeah, the state OHSAA puts on a cross-country preview the first weekend of the cross-country season, and we went down there this weekend, and we finished 4th out of 37 teams, and they're all the best teams in the state. So we are hopeful that this group will be back up here in mid-November at that board meeting, celebrating a successful cross-country season. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Coach. And ladies, congratulations again. We look forward to seeing you in November and again this time next year. So have a great school year. Have a great season. Thank you. That takes us now, that is the recognition part of our board meeting. From here on out, I'm sure you'd all love to stay, but you don't need to. If you've got other things you want to do with your evening, particularly after taking a run or something, you may grab something to eat or something. So Next on our agenda, while we get ready for that, is going to be our first opportunity for public participation.
Thank you.
The board welcomes comments from the public. We require that you sign in at that table right there for both this first public participation as well as the second public participation at the end of the meeting. This first session will be for any comments regarding agenda items only. The second session will be for non-agenda items. So I will hold a second here while we bring up the list.
And can we reserve the right to circle back for a break? President Bennington, don't take that off the list, please.
Okay, we do not have any public participation today, so we will reserve the right for a 5-minute break later on in this meeting. Otherwise, we will move on to Mr. Hosser's superintendent report for August.
All right, thank you. Well, welcome back to school. So we're grateful to be here. Wanted to walk through a couple of things just to share with the Board of Education. So opening day, thank you board members for participating. It's a day where we bring the entire staff back together under one roof in the same room and kick off the school year. So we had some special guests. We had the Clipboards, which was just fresh off their world tour, Clipboards are a faculty band, and then the Protractors, who are our junior high horn section,
They all
so
sounded
that
great
backed
and
them up.
rested and were in full form.
Yeah, so it was exciting to see them perform, and great feedback. And we'll talk a little bit more about the theme for the back to school, but we're very grateful for them and all that they did to put that together. Later on that morning, we hosted Governor DeWine with a group of our teachers to talk about literacy. So it was quite an honor to have the governor, select Perrysburg and to come and listen to our staff talk about all that we're doing to help students, with literacy and certainly helping them achieve their greatest potential. So we're very proud of our staff and the efforts that they do. The following day, it's always nice to see our schools, in the headlines featured this way, and just the positive feedback from having our staff offer their feedback was really impressive. For our administrators, we began the 1st of August with a retreat at the W.W. Knight Center. And it's a great way to, again, bring folks together, talk about the school year and making sure that we are aligned with, what we hope to be achieving. With the strategic planning process that took place, it was great to spend a lot of time talking about those conversations and the direction that we needed to go as a district. So that's also something that's very important to us. So we wanted to go with a staffing update. So I'll begin with, we need crossing guards. So I just thought I would put that out there in subs. So that's something that we're working on. Mrs. Price filled in, which she did frequently last year, and I pitched in one day last week. So it was great to be out there. And thankfully, we had that position covered today. But since April, to give it perspective, that department has processed over 100 new hires and position transfers. So we had a great welcome back or welcome orientation for new staff members that are new to the district. And when you think about, we had just between 30 and 40 new teachers that were at this event. Behind each of those is a lengthy HR process, which is applications and screening and all the things that go into it. So 100 is a lot to think about, but really you need to acknowledge all the other steps to get us to this place, which Don and his crew did just an outstanding job. So we're very grateful for that. So we're looking for bus drivers. We're down 6 positions. And, we hear oftentimes, that with that many drivers that were short, we are managing. And I just wanted to take a moment to clarify what managing means. Managing means that we're not running the department and the routes the way that we would if we had all of those 6 positions filled. And I'll give you for example. We have high school routes for students at the end of the day, and those buses are arriving to the high school after they complete their the drops between the junior high and HPI beforehand. So those buses are late getting to the high school to pick up those students. So that means the students get home anywhere between 45 minutes, best case scenario, to an hour and 15 minutes after dismissal time. And so when we talk about that we're managing it well, everybody gets on a bus, everybody goes home. But the buses are crowded. They've done an excellent job of trying to balance the routes to make sure everybody has a spot and able to get home. And fuller buses mean longer routes because we have more kids that are being dropped off. And then for the high school students, that is a delay. We're expending some funds to have an aide monitor the students after school so they're supervised. So as we begin to fill those positions, we look forward to those routes kind of shortening up, and those students getting home much quicker. So we wanted just to talk a little bit about the fact that you hear things like we're down 6 drivers, but we're holding our own, we're managing. But I think it's important to understand what that really means to our students and families. Late resignations, we've had a couple of those here leading into the first couple weeks of school, as well as, actually Don is dealing with those as we speak. So that happens, and we're looking for quick responses to get those done. So we're greatly appreciative of the building staff working together to take care of that. And the new staff orientation, as I mentioned, was something that was very, very positive, and great to see the teachers that are new to the district and hear their stories. We'll spend a little more time on this, but the public opinion survey, give us a grade. It's something that we do annually. 84% gave us an A or a B, which is very, very positive for us. So we're grateful for that and continue to work to improve that grade, just like we ask our students to. Niche is a rating that looks at data through their lens, and then they come out with some different website rankings, and you can see here how our school district and schools match up with that. So it's nothing that we put a lot of weight into in terms of, okay, we need to do the things so niche, our rating in niche goes up. We just do what we do. And it's interesting to see that, out of the 608, 607 school districts that were among the top, in the entire state of Ohio. Looking back at last year, our preschool again was a 5-star rating, and that's exciting. So as soon as the students are able to actually get to the preschool here, hopefully very soon, with all the construction in Maumee, we'll be looking forward to another outstanding year there at Union Elementary or Union School. The Swarm, our student section, won student section of the year with BCSN, and if you were at the game Friday night, you certainly see the reason why. This is something that I just love, but 70% of the students participate in one co-curricular, extracurricular activity sponsored by the school. And that is really great. The more students are involved in after-school activities, the more they're going to achieve. We completed the first regional, reunification drill at HPI, probably our last, the way it was set up, but we learned a great deal, and that helped us, and it helped all of our buildings because there are universal steps that need to be taken that we learned along the way. And it doesn't take necessarily an act of violence to trigger a school reunification, but with the rail crossings that we have in the community, our proximity to highways, a tanker spills and we need to move kids to a different location and then get them home, the things that we learned were really universal. So OFCC visited our buildings last year to put us in the program, and they talked about how impressed they were with the conditions. And they go all of our buildings, the pride that our staff had, and they go all across Ohio. And then also, the last 3 years has been very challenging with substitutes. And we're just so grateful that everybody, teachers and custodians, secretaries, administrators, bus drivers, everybody stepped up to help fill in where needed. And that came at a cost to individuals, and also, and it was something professionally and personally that people had to contend with when you do step up and fill in. Graduation seems like a long time ago, but it wasn't. But we know that the high school is named one of the best high schools by U.S. News and World Report. And nationally, STEM schools, it was ranked very highly as a STEM school. And our graduating class was offered over $18 million in scholarships. So when you look at the last few years, when you combine that, we're at $81 million of scholarships that are being offered to our students. The biliteracy recognitions really, again, point to some of the reasons why universities want Perrysburg students to attend their university. The state report card, again, was out of the 605 districts in Ohio that had a score, we ranked 29th, which puts us in the top 5%. So that's certainly incredible. Perrysburg High School, out of the 805 public high schools that were measured, we were 9th best in the state, and that is, again, incredibly proud of that accomplishment. AP results, this is something that when you look at the last 5 years of AP exams, this year this past spring we had more AP tests, more students participating in taking AP tests, and we had more exams taken, a significant amount. So AP scores 0 to 5. If you receive a 3, 4, or 5 score, that means that you are able to receive college credits for that. So you can see that 86% of our students achieve a 3 or better in earning, and that leads them to earning college credits. So for the folks that are beginning to look at, charting their students and getting them into AP courses, it's a huge benefit to families in terms of setting up students for success. We're looking forward to updating this, but in 2022 and 23, the number of national merit finalists, semifinalists, you could see that Perrysburg is leading the way, just behind Maumee Valley. And we hosted St. Francis on Friday night, and if you took many of the private schools, added them together, they would not equal the number of finalists that Perrysburg's had over the last 2 years. So we're very proud of that accomplishment. In Perrysburg, and the role that the district plays in the community and how it is recognized, Ohio Magazine once again selected Perrysburg as one of the great places to live, best hometown issue. And one of the things that the editors chose Perrysburg is it's for its charming downtown, great schools, and appreciation for local history. So once again, it is, Perrysburg is that engine that drives so much of the positive in Perrysburg. So we're very grateful for that. Our development office has raised $7.6 million since its development and since it's initiated in fall of 2013. The Heacock Family Fund for Education is really a great story, and just briefly, a graduate whose mother was a teacher began to become interested in the schools, lives in California, and made some donations, was approached about helping one of our exchange students who was from the Ukraine and could not return. The war had started during her time here, and he stepped up and made a donation there, and that led to further conversations, and now has made a gift of $500,000 to a Perrysburg graduate who's going to be going to the University of Toledo, where he attended. And to hear him talk about his experience, the role of education with his mom and his sister, and how it set him up on a trajectory of success. He talked about his boss, Steve, and the work that they did together. Steve from Apple, So he retired from Apple and had a great career and wants to give back. So again, pretty exciting to hear that story and how somebody who wants to give back in that way. And you know, one of the things that we look, and certainly Mr. Dreyer will talk more about this, but you know, the cost that it takes to educate a Perrysburg student. We just talked about the accomplishments, recognized students here, looked at the data of what we're doing in the district, and we're doing at a cost that is significantly below the state average. So in the last 6 years, it is the most we've been under the state average to educate a student. So the state of Ohio collects all the dollars that we spend. They look at they categorize it so that we can break it down and look at it. They have a report that analyzes it, and you can then compare it to other districts. The state average is $14,600 to educate a student. We're doing it for $12,936. So that's a $1,700 difference, less than the state average per student. 5,800 students, $1,700 per student under the state average. You know, that is a great value. In this theme of consistent fiscal responsibility, you know, operating in the black, we just, last board meeting talked about ending our fiscal year. It's the 4th consecutive year that we've ended in the black. So more revenue over expenditures. So that's something that we're very proud of. And really that is an effort that goes to, you know, Mr. Dreyer, Mrs. Wells, our assistant treasurer, and their staff, but also the staff, the administrators, everybody who's looking at ways to reduce spending wherever we can, and it's showing with what the state's reporting. So again, it's lower cost and higher performance, and that's something that we strive for here in Perrysburg. And we have the data. So when we have people say, we're not sure how you're spending your dollars, or we think that you're not spending your dollars in a wise way, we're always willing to listen to the reasons why. We can always get better. And we take a look in the mirror to find out what we can do. However, when you start to say, you know, let's look at the data where we are to begin that conversation, you know, we rely heavily on those data points to guide us. So we're proud of where we stand now. Back to school message was talking about you belong with our staff, and we've talked about the 100 vacancies that were in movement that took place, and we know that education has become, as an industry, much more competitive than ever in terms of trying to attract and retain talent. We have some resignations of people that have been with us for many years who are leaving education. Our focus this year is making sure that our staff, our you know, everybody on our staff and certainly our students feel that they belong. So the conversations that we're having, the work that we're going to be doing throughout the year is really getting that sense of belonging and making sure our staff feels connected in meaningful ways. So this is something that was very important to us as we began to kick off this school year. Love the back to school photos, and you can see that you know, our staff, that sense of belonging. There's a lot of pride in what we do and a lot of care that goes into our students and serving our students, and you can see that in their faces, how excited they are to be back. And this is what we live for. This is what we get up in the mornings and drive to work and you know, show up. And of course, it's a great reminder for us to remember why we do what we do. And I know the board, with the challenges that you face, being here, reminding yourselves of the reasons why we do and you do what you do, because it's not always easy. And that's a great welcome back photos here, so we enjoy that. So I want to move to a little bit to talk about the bond issue that is on the ballot. As you recall, we had a facilities planning committee, and we recognized them, and starting with that conversation, we think that the Perrysburg strength lies in its unity. And after 14 months of 50 or more members of the community in 3 different committees, you know, they came up with a recommendation that came to the board of what to do with the school's growth. And the unanimous board decision to move forward with placing it on the ballot reflects this commitment to really a community-driven solution to the problems and the challenges that we're facing as a school district. And this plan, the committee felt, fosters excellence in education and really focuses on being fiscally responsible. And that came through in the presentation. So we wanted to address some of the answers to the questions that we're beginning to hear as people are starting to engage and talk about the bond issue. So the correct answers that were to the questions we're hearing: 40, 52, 2,700. Safety was a concern, 7.5 million, 8.3 million, 8,308 in the 1950s. So thank you. Those were the correct answers. And if you have any questions, just kidding. So I wanted to highlight a few of those. So 40. One of the things that you heard from the committee that we're hearing about is, if the decision is to not pursue expanding the buildings as the committee proposed and the board has placed before the voters, it's estimated that the district will need 40 additional portables between now and 2040. So we know that students are coming. We know that we need to find a place for those students and to accommodate them. We're going to need more places to put students. And so that was one of the things that they talked about. 52 would be the total number of portables that would be in play with the district, including the 12 that we have in play now. So that is significant because the committee, as they looked at this, they came back with this data point, something that I learned during their presentation. They estimate approximately 2,700 students would spend part or all of their day in portables in 2040 if nothing is done. And that was something that really came back to their very resounding, and you heard that in the presentation, that we do not want to continue to rely on portable classrooms moving forward. We want to move away from this. One of them was having that many students in portables, and that's really not why people choose Perrysburg. And also safety was a concern, and you heard that. And as they toured the buildings and they looked at the different portables, and we talked about how we had changed and modified some of our existing buildings to make them more safe. They walked out the door and they looked behind the buildings or on the side of the buildings and saw portable classrooms and said, well, this is not great because you're spending all of this effort doing all these things in the building, but yet you have students walking in between the building and classes throughout the day. Or somebody who can just approach these buildings. So that was something that was very important to them, and you heard that with the recommendation. We know that with a bond issue, not only pulling the students into a building which is better fortified, but we also know, and on the slide here you see some of those things that we would be doing in addition to just bringing students in the building where we know they'll be safer. And software and cameras, different types of lockdown availability with buttons and locking doors and those kinds of things. So that's important to us. $7,590 or $7.5 million is the estimated amount of money the district would spend on portable classrooms. As shared by a presenter, a temporary solution for a growing problem. Portables are not designed to last forever. And that was, again, another reason why the committee said doing nothing is going to lead us to spending money out of the general fund, that is dollars that are moving away from some of the programs and staffing that we have recognized today to buy places for kids to learn, which will continue to be a drain. $8.3 million, that is that deferred maintenance in 2018. The board said, let's take a look at where we are in terms of needing to update our buildings and invest in them for the next generation of students. And we came up with a cost. So we asked to update that work as we prepared with the facilities committee. And the difference between 2018 costs and today's costs was $8.3 million. So the committee, as they pointed out, will it be more or less expensive to address this today, or a year from now, 2 years from now, or 4 years from now? And so that was something that's important. The 8,308, if we continue to grow at at 2% a year. In 2040, we will be sitting with 8,308 students in Perrysburg School District. So we haven't done a count yet as the beginning of the school year, but we ended last year with just over 5,800 students. And so we'll see where we land this year. And then, you know, the 1950s, we knew we talked about this in the 1950s was really a defining moment in Perrysburg's history, where it was the only decade where we had to add 2 elementaries. As you see here, in 1952, Toth was added, and then in 1958, 6 years later, they had to add another one. And then in between that, they had to remove the 3rd floor of the old Commodore building, the 1894 building, because the 3rd floor was condemned. So they had aging facilities, and they had a need for new buildings. It sounds familiar. So as Perrysburg wrestled with that, and I'm sure if there was Facebook in the 1950s, it would not have gone unnoticed that, all right, in 1952, you're asking us to build a new building. All right, in 1953, you're tearing part of a building down. Oh, and now you're back to us in 1958 for another building? But we appreciate that the residents rolled up their sleeves, looked at this issue, supported the schools, because we're benefiting today from those decisions. You know, we're certainly grateful for those sacrifices, and that's something that I think the committee felt was a strong correlation between where we are today, where we were in the 1950s, and where we hope to go in the future. You know, this when you look at this bond issue, it is really about needs and not wants. I had somebody stop me and said, you know, I think you guys made a mistake. There isn't anything, and excuse my language here, but they said there isn't anything sexy in this bond issue. And I said, well, if you're a teacher and you have students in a portable and you're having to every hour figure out a way to get a student or 2 in and out of the bathroom in the building and back into your classroom, if you could have a classroom in the building, that's pretty sexy. And that's really what defines this particular project, is this is about needs and not wants. I think it's worth repeating. This is about needs and not wants. So we're grateful for the conversation. We're beginning to get some questions, and certainly wanted to share some of this information with the board. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Hostler?
I'm struck by the fact of, you said that we've got 5,800 students at the close of last year. That's 1,000 more students than when I joined the board. That, somehow that really hit me. That's a lot of kids. Yeah. That's a lot going on. There was something in here. Let me scroll through it. If somebody else has another question, there was something I was going to say earlier. Now I don't remember what it was.
So we're starting to generate an FAQ. So I don't know if it's uploaded on the district website or not, but it is something that we're working on, and you know, taking the questions that we're hearing, many, you know, that prompted us to share this information with the board this evening. We'll have that available, and it's great to hear those, because then we can add them, because if one person's asking them, I'm pretty sure someone else is as well.
I remembered what it was. One lady asked me, why are we asking for so much? And I said, well, we've split it actually in half, the full ask. The board felt that that was an easier way to do this. Well, why aren't you prioritizing? And I said, we are. If you look at what's happening in the first half, it's the things that must be done immediately, if not yesterday. And it struck me for the number of times that we all have heard that message, that it's still somehow not getting out there. And your final 2 slides really emphasize that. This isn't the cherry on top. This isn't even the frosting. This is the cake. This is things that we need. We can't operate with 1,000 extra people and not do something for that. And then as soon as I say that, we're going to get people who excoriate us for not waiting until the very last second to do something, and now we're in a panic. And I was like, no, we've been stretching a dime and a dollar as much as we can. We've been doing things. We built Whole Prairie. Well, as your slide said, OFCC said that we had some of the finest looking buildings, especially for their age, that they've ever seen. Well, that comes from a fantastic operations department. And it baffles me. I don't know how else we can get the message out that this is really important. This is really important. And I hear all the time, and I'm sure y'all do too, that you talk to somebody and they say, oh, we came to Perrysburg because of the schools. Not because we have a great uptown, not because we've got Churchill's, God bless him, but it's because of the schools. And yeah, that burden falls on everybody to make sure that stays that way.
And that's also a reflection in real estate prices.
Yeah.
I bought our house 20 years ago, haven't moved, and we've done some upgrades in the houses that have sold in our neighborhood. And they sell because we're a good school district, and and people don't understand how this circular correlation, if you're in a good school district, your houses are going to sell. And I think also what is frustrating is there are people that want to learn and understand how school funding is and how budgets pay for certain things, and there are others that are immediate no and don't want to listen, period. And it's like, we didn't, somebody paid for your child to go to school and for you to go to school and for, others, and we just have to keep it rolling. And again, this isn't about wants, it's about needs. I mean, look at the preschool. We've talked about bringing the preschool back here. And how old is Union? And, we're delayed because of that, and the transportation and the issues we have getting there. And it's just, there's so much that goes into it, and it's just frustrating that people don't want to learn and educate themselves. That's what's frustrating.
After we got your message that Union was going to be postponed for at least a week, I said, wow, I haven't been by there in a while. And I drove by there. Oh, that was a mistake. I said, oh, no wonder they're postponed. I'd be postponed too. But here's a question that in the crevices of my mind, I think has been answered, but I'm not really sure. The YMCA building next to the funeral home, is that not a viable place now that it's up for lease for preschool? Didn't we look
Daycare?
into that for a while?
Not big enough,
Yeah, I'd
I
have
don't
to
think.
take a look and see. We have 200 students that we serve, so I'm not sure what the capacity of that building would be, so we'd have to take a look at that.
I don't
so,
know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Mr.
Just I saw
President,
an empty building and went, ooh.
Not big enough.
I'm not sure if you want this discussion now or board discussion, but I'm kind of curious as to what other board members are hearing. I'll tell you what I'm hearing. So you want to have that discussion now? Or?
Yeah, now's
Okay.
the time.
Well, the thing and I had both sides of the table, people saying, well, it's a lot of money, and it is. And the other houses are changing with the tax dollars because of the appraisals. It is, it's true. Very good conversations. But I like the slide, again, where we show from 2018 to current, the $8.3 million costs more to do something. And we're at a point we can't wait. And I explained that to the folks that talked with me. I said, well, I tell you what, we were through a system at one time where they defeated the school levy. The high school took 3 different attempts before it passed, and we built a high school that was smaller than the plans were originally set for in the first vote, and the second vote, and the third vote. Consequently, here we are now, some years later, 23 years later, but now having to make some adjustments to the building. That was originally planned for the growth. But again, the community can speak and the community can vote. We certainly will go with what they tell us to do, and we'll make the adjustments and changes as need be. But when I tell the folks, listen, something's got to be done, and here's why, and they kind of get it then with the financials. It's going to cost more down the road. At some point, something's going to pass to make the improvements because our buildings are overcrowded. They are getting older. We need to make the adjustments and the changes. And I think what slam dunks this whole thing for me, I continue to say, is the committee that worked over a year, the 50 members of the community who spent the time to really analyze the needs and made the recommendation to the board. And that, to me, that gives a lot of validity and some clout to this project. So that's what I'm hearing. How about some of the other board members? Is there any questions that you're hearing that, more so than others?
The feedback I'm primarily getting is about, and it was covered in here, and this is one slide, the deferred maintenance. You take care of your buildings, sick buildings become a greater problem. The problem amplifies itself as you let it go further and further out into time. So that's one that I hear is resonating. And then, because it's so visible, the deferred maintenance may not even be that visible because, again, the operations team does such a great job taking care of the buildings. But what the community is saying, what I'm hearing about too, is the portables. Got to get rid of the portables. We certainly, what was that? What was the number of how many portables could be out there? I mean, I think 12 of them right now is enough. Another 40 is, you know, that's not a great look. So those are kind of the two things that this levy this discussion is starting to resonate with, is take care of these buildings and get rid of the portables.
Also, conversations I've had have been, you know, understanding the amount of growth. When you talk about 1,000 kids, that's a lot, but that is the size of an Otto Hills. We've grown a school district. You know what I mean?
And it was a painful work.
Right, but when you, and I refer back to that slide that we've seen before that says they started in kindergarten, and we've gained 147 kids in that grade by the time they get to their senior year. And I don't think, you know, some of the conversations I've had have been, well, the city needs to stop letting people build. So, well, you can't stop somebody from selling their land. How would you feel if somebody told you you couldn't sell your house? You know, and having those conversations, just an understanding of where the money comes from and what you can spend it on, and just the explaining that in lay terms. You know, I always talk about, and we plan to have 2 kids. You know, we didn't have plans 6 kids, 7 kids. We budgeted for 2 kids. But in a school district, while you think you're only going to have how many, we just had to add a kindergarten class or a kindergarten teacher at Frank, if I'm correct in that, because of the number of kids. You don't know how many are going to, you know, come into the district. So while you have a budget, you can't stop people from coming in, period. And I think that's another thing that people need to understand, that we're a public school district. We take everybody as we should, and we can't turn them away.
I had a question, not related to the levy. On your slide where you said, I love that picture of you with a stop sign in there. You said that we need crossing guards and subs. Was that subs for crossing guards, or we need subs and crossing guards, or is that substitute teachers, subs for all departments, just subs?
Yeah, so crossing guards, you know, I mean, that was kind of the play with the filling in the other day, but substitutes across the board is important. So sub-crossing guards, that's also helpful. When I was working the corner, I had a retiree who approached me, and she walks every day and you know, enjoys it. And I said, a substitute would be perfect. The days that you choose, you want to do it, your schedule allows it, you know, I'll just let you, you know, you could sub, and if you don't feel like it, the weather's not good, and so that's really an ideal situation, and the more of a deeper pool we have there, but that could apply to our kitchen staff, our, you know, aides, monitors, teachers, you know, it just gives us more flexibility, because subs, they can pick and choose what days and what buildings and there are days where we have a lot of subs on paper, but for whatever reason that particular day we just don't have subs. So.
Okay.
I was gonna comment on when people talk about growth in Perrysburg, and somebody who, I moved here in 1978. When you look at the size and you actually look at what Perrysburg, the boundaries, if you will, there's so much potential for growth. I mean, I feel like it's one of those things, like, when you build it, they will come. You build the elementary or HPI and then, you know, a neighborhood. That's just a hard fact of what farmland is still left. So I always say to people, I mean, it's no surprise it's going to keep on getting bigger. And if you're not looking for a bigger town anymore, you know, like maybe a Pemberville, something that's still small, I mean, that's truly what Perrysburg has become. So it's not this, you know, unfortunately small town that, you know, I grew up in. I mean, the high school is going to get bigger. You know, it's just, that's what it is. I mean, it's a desirable location, but it will continue to, you know, years from, you know, from now, just continue to get bigger and bigger. I think of Olentangy, this like district that was nothing and used to drive through Delaware, and now it's just, I mean, you know, high school after high school, it's just expands. But that's what happens with, you know, farmland. And again, you can't, like Lori said, you can't blame people for selling what they have. And then, you know, again, you just have to accommodate what the growth is. So, yeah. I guess my point is it's not going to end just on this decision we have on the ballot. It will be, you know, continuing. So again, people shouldn't have a surprise when, you know, years from now, decisions like this are being discussed as well.
Well, good comments. And if any other closing comments on this? Yeah, Mr. Pullman, as you said, 60 community members, 50, 60 community members coming together for a year to get us to this point. I know that there's a group of community members getting together to start to talk about the levy and how they can help and do their advocacy within the community. So call to action there, you know, pay attention to further information and how we can help with that campaign as well. And congratulations to a strong start to the school year, working through the you know, the busing and whatever other last minute hiccups and adjustments you need to make, but it does seem like we're off to a great 2023-24 school year.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda is the financial reports.
And Dr. Reffert talked about the 1,000 students being in Ottawa Hills. To put another perspective on that, there's 193 school districts in the state of Ohio that are less than 1,000 students. So a third of the school districts in Ohio are less than what we've added. So just to put that in perspective. Yeah, it's if you look at the graph of the size of school districts, I think Kelly's Island might be 5 students or something right now. But anyway, they got more staff than they have students, actually.
They have more board members than they have students.
Yeah, exactly. I know the treasurer, they fly her in the winter to board meetings into the island. So you guys can fly me into Perrysburg anytime. My contract's coming up, just so you know. That's not frugal, is it? Go back to the You Belong theme. We're thinking about it a couple weeks ago. I had some cousins up from San Antonio. We're hanging around my uncle's porch. He lives out in western Fulton County, and we're just talking. They looked at me and says, "You retired yet?" I go, "No." They just kind of looked at me kind of strange. I look forward to going to work every day. I got booted out of the family right then, so, and here we are. So let me give you an update where we are. It'll be somewhat brief. We're only 1 month into the year, so there's not a whole lot of news. But let me start with the, other way. The highlight, my most important number besides being in the black is the number of true cash days. We're at 175 true cash days. That's our peak. So essentially, we could operate half a year if we had no revenue coming in, right? You look at $36 million in the bank, which is nice, but remember, but our burn rate's about $6 million a month. So it doesn't go very far, but it's a good place to be. It's a lot better feeling being there than where else it could be. Now, this month's financials, I want to be really transparent. If you actually looked at some of the financials, some things don't add up, and I'll explain why. We got our tax advance in end of June, then we got the rest of our property tax receipts for the second half in July, but we didn't get our settlement until August. And so what you're seeing here is essentially corrected after we got the settlement and we corrected the numbers. So in the green boxes, what I've done is kind of corrected both years so we're matching apples to apples. So essentially, the property taxes and our public utility personal property have all been collected for this half, and you can see where we stand. And we have a little bit of money coming in yet from some delinquencies and manufactured homes, that kind of stuff. But essentially, you can see that we've got our collection, slightly ahead of last year is what we would expect at this point. Income tax is down a little bit, but a lot of that's timing, and the rest of the numbers we're right where we expect to be. I will point out on the benefit side, that number is considerably less than last year. We've changed our posting processes a little bit, so it'll catch up. I'd like to be 34% lower on benefit costs, but that's not a real number at this point. Again, you've seen this chart. This is what our cash flow looks every year. We're at our peak. And I've already kind of hit on these. We're 1 month into the fiscal year. Interest earnings continue to be strong, which is great because we're not borrowing right now. Bond issue passes, we go to the bond market next spring. I want interest rates at rock bottom. Then they can go back up after we borrow, right? I want a little bit of everything. Real estate collections are good, and income tax collections are slightly off. I already talked about benefits, so nothing major there. So it's 1 month, not a whole lot to say at this point. But I thought I would do is kind of show you how the sausage is made a little bit. At the risk of scaring you, I want to talk a little bit about how we deal with tax collections. So this sheet of numbers is we get from after all the taxes are collected, the auditor sends us this sheet, says, here's your settlement sheet, and then we, at that point, make sure we've got everything posted correctly. Now, you can't read all those numbers, but essentially across the top, those are each of our levies, all right, and each of the collections. So let me narrow it down here and talk about just a few of them so you get an idea. So these are a summary of our levies, and I'll come back to these in a few minutes. But as you recall, we got 2 bond issues out there. One's coming 1 more year on it. We got a general fund inside, current expense voted, that's continuing. We have a fixed sum continuing, and the increasing fixed sum, the incremental, we got 1 more year on that, and then got our 2 PI levies. So I'm going to look at I wanted to show you the first 3 levies on the settlement sheet, kind of talk you through what they're all about. Okay, so the first column is this bond issue that's for HBI and some other work. The first line on that is, you see agriculture residential. That's called Class 1 property tax. That's the bulk of our revenue comes from residential and ag land. We got a little bit of commercial, but not nearly as much. As you work down there, in the next section, you see less reimbursements. Those are the discounts that some homeowners can get. The homestead, there's some, non-business credit. And you'll notice 2 things on this. The first 2 columns, you'll notice you don't see any reimbursements in the second and third line, and that's because those are newer levies, and those reimbursements don't apply to new levies anymore. Okay, so only the older levies. The homestead reimbursement is maintained regardless of the year. Then come below, you see delinquent real property. That's just what it sounds like. Delinquent taxes for the past collected. And then the next line is personal property, public utilities, personal property. So all that line you add up, and then you subtract out the county treasurer, the county auditor, get paid out of their collections. And there's also it's called DTAC funding, which is percentage of delinquencies. They get that, the county can use to invest how the commissioners want to invest. So each of the levies are the same way. So the next column is our incremental fixed sum levy. You read it the same way. All right, there's a lot of detail there. But again, it's those same features. The third column's a little bit different in that it contains the inside millage for operating and our current expense. These are the 2 levies that go to the 20 mil floor, which we'll talk about again here in a minute. But when we talk about the 20 mil floor, it's this column right here. So we take all that, we plug it into our system and get our financial results. So we talked about this back in April. I want to hit a couple slides on this to remind, because people are getting their tax bills and their taxes are going up. There's no way to sugarcoat that at all. But I want to remind the board, taxes are not going up because of anything you have done or we have done or the county auditor's done. The county auditor is following the law, right? That's his job. It's in statute what has to happen, and that's what he's doing. So I showed you this graph. The last column is 2022, and just you notice the green bar is missing. For some reason, that data fell out, but that bar would be a little bit higher. And then we have 2023, it'll be even higher. So this is the impact of reappraisal since 2002. That first year here, that's 2002, and you can see groups of 3. And that's because by law, every 6 years, there is an update, and every 6 years, there is a reappraisal. So that means every 3 years, something is happening. Typically, the biggest jumps happen on years where there's a reappraisal. So what happens is, on the update years, the Department of Taxation, they're in charge of the updates. They look at sales data. And they say, okay, based on the sales data, homes are selling for 20% more than they did 3 years ago. The value should all be up 20%. And then the Department of Taxation says, hey, Mr. County Auditor, this is what we propose. The county auditor is going to push back a little bit. They go negotiate. The Department of Taxation sets that update level. And you'll notice here, we've had one drop since 2002. My pointer will work. It was working. Okay, so right here, that's 2010 to 2011, there's the drop. What happened at that time? Anyone remember?
Real estate market crash.
The housing market, but when did the housing market actually crash, really? 2008, right? But the update happened in 2011, so the sales data caught up with it at that point. Homes were not selling for as much, so the valuations dropped.
Where are the years?
They got cut off down
Oh,
here.
okay.
But they're 2002 to 2022. Kelly, I can get you that graph. So this is just our normal cycle. Now the 20% or so, 24% average across the county is it's unusual to have that big a jump. We're actually one of the, I won't say lower counties, but I think Claremont County, they had an update year, it wasn't reappraisal, they had a 40% increase because it's all based on sales data. So what happens then in the reappraisal year, the county auditor is supposed to go look at every property. They've added a garage, have they done something to add value to the property? And then with sales data, et cetera, they put together a reappraisal, and they send that up to the Department of Taxation. Department of Taxation says, and the county auditor here negotiate again to find what that rate is. Obviously, the county auditor is advocating on behalf of the residents of Wood County. The Department of Taxation is trying to say the law says you need to appraise those properties at the real value. Okay, so there's that push-pull. So as you know, it's been announced, the average is 24% across the county. One neighborhood could be 35%, a neighborhood could be minus 5%, right? That's an average across the county, and any given home could be different. Okay, so you've seen this before. These are our levies, and you can see the effective rate, the current effective rate in that column, and what that current effective rate would generate or cost a homeowner for $325,000 home. I'm not assuming any discounts here, right? I'm just saying they're paying the full freight. The impact of the 2024 reappraisal is shown here in the yellow. Notice that in the 2 bond issues, the 2 fixed sum levies, and the voted PI levy, the drop in the effective rates. And notice that the collection after reappraisal stays the same. That's the impact of House Bill 920, right? But, and this is where the district, being at the 20 mil floor, benefits from this, I know obviously it's painful if we have to pay that bill, is the two levies, the two yellows after the reappraisal. Notice the effective rate for the general fund inside and general current expense voted. Those effective rates didn't drop because they're at the 20 mil floor. Therefore, we see an increase in revenue. The same thing with the PI levy for technology, which is inside millage. It stays at half a mil, so it doesn't drop. So the impact of this is about, a little less than $500 on a $325,000 home, which is about 8.7%. Now, I want to minimize that, right? But it is real. And also recognize that the school taxes are not the only thing. It's in your property tax. We're 65 to 70% of the property tax, but there's other real estate taxes. It could be library, emergency funds, cemeteries, all those things. Some of it inside millage, some of it voted. So we're not the only thing. The difference is those 35 or 30% others, they're not affected by House Bill 920, so they automatically, their effective rate doesn't drop. So there's automatically an increase on that side. So the average homeowner is going to see more than 8.7%. But from the school district standpoint, our benefit for that 24% is about 8.7% increase in revenue. Now, the complicating thing, one last one, truth in advertising, we have that incremental levy. And so it goes up $1.5 million, and that's that green line. So the effective rate dropped because of the reappraisal, then we add millage back on to get $1.5 million more in collection. So any questions on that? I just want to be really clear. I mean, it's one of those things, it's never an easy conversation, but I think we have to be open-eyed about the things.
Talking about tithing in church.
Millage is one of those things, I don't know about you, I didn't understand millage until I had to understand millage, right? You saw your tax bill, you paid your tax bill, and you went on.
Well, I guess if you could, so the increasing fixed sum levy, the first column is 10.69.
Yep.
To 8.91, the drop due
Yep.
to the nature of how that levy is structured.
Yeah, because it is structured to generate a fixed sum, but that fixed sum goes up in $1.5 million. So in its final year, it'll collect $13.5 million. I can't remember what the first year it collected,
Do you recall what that 10.24 was projected to be when this levy was put on the ballot?
I don't.
Okay.
I have to look
But
that
less
up.
than the 10.24?
Well, yeah, think about it. We were at less than $1 billion valuation when that levy was passed, and now we're going to be over $1.3 billion. So there's over a 30% increase in valuation since that levy was passed. That in itself it's going to drive that millage way
Driven
down.
by both home valuations as well as unit growth in the community.
Right. Well, yes, but the fixed sums are the unique growth adds revenue, so every new dollar of new construction lowers the existing homeowners on the fixed sum. It doesn't do that on the other ones, but does on the fixed sum.
And that collection, you still collected in 2025, right? That first half of the.
The last, let's see, I got to look at. It's always confusing because it's always a year behind.
I think it goes into 2025 for the first half. Is that right?
The last collection on that is next year at this time.
So it is 2024.
It's 2024 is the last. So it has to. So next year we'll do something to replace that or substitute or that levy, unless we want to find a way to cut, $14 or $15 million, which I don't know. I don't want to even contemplate it at this point, but we have to think about it. But next year, November, but if it doesn't pass, it'll be difficult.
Okay, so it does end in 2024, a year from now. But what I'm asking is, do you collect it though still in 2025? Let me reword that.
Collect it.
I know it ends, but I think if I'm not mistaken, you still collect
You collect it.
in
You're always a
2025.
year
Okay.
behind.
Correct.
Right?
Okay.
So
That's-
the taxes being paid this year, well, that were from 2022.
Correct.
So,
You're a year
anyway.
behind. Yep. Okay.
A couple other items. Yep.
Mr. Husser just put up at 10.24, or where am I at? Yeah, 10.24 was projected to be 14.2.
Yeah,
that much of a decrease due to the
Because
increase in valuations.
before we think, the thing was, when we passed that levy, mill was generating a little less than $1 million. Now we have a 1 mil of levy, will be generating about 1.3 million. So,
But your point is that 10.24 is still less than what was projected. when it was
4 years ago
four-
when, yes, yeah, that's the nature of these increasing
Those fixed
sum levies.
sums, that's why, yeah.
there's a couple items real quick. Just know then and nows are a point of emphasis to me right now. In your financial package every month, there's a list of then and nows, okay? We don't cover them, but just want you to be aware, by law, what that really means is someone bought something before they had a purchase order. And a then and now is I attest that it was budgeted, it was a good purchase, they just didn't get something in line. If it's over $3,000, it requires board approval. We put them all in front of you every month, but there's been a few more than I'd like, and we're dealing with those consequences. In board docs, there is a document on our commercial paper transactions. Annually, it's not mandated, but it's a best practice to show you where our income came from on our commercial paper. So just annually, I'll give you that. You know, you do get every month the investments, how much we made on a macro level. You can actually see the commercial paper that we bought and sold last year. Also in board docs, for those of you that is my office goals for 2024, points of emphasis. I won't discuss them here, but if you want to look at it, if you got feedback for me, I'd be more than willing to discuss it for you. It's, you know, kind of the things that I intend to do, mainly from a process improvement kind of standpoint. We're into the favorite time of the year. Hostlers is Christmas. Mine is audit season. Not really, but the first step in the audit process is getting our financial documents prepared, and that process is happening now. The auditors collect all the documents, they create our financial reports, and then the auditors actually come in and audit those financial documents, and that's happening. We're having a desk audit of our auxiliary funds every 4 years. So St. Rose has about $150,000 a year that comes from the state through us. We're the agent. They have to write a purchase order to us. We buy it. We own the item, but it goes to St. Rose for educating students. They come in every 4 years and audit that to make sure that those monies are being used properly. It's the one place in funding for state dollars for non-publics that there's some accountability. And because anything they buy actually belongs to the Perrysburg Exempted Village School District. And the last thing, just so you know, we got permanent appropriations on the agenda tonight, which doesn't mean anything because I can amend them, but by law, by end of September, you have to approve permanent appropriations. So that's it. Any questions? All right.
Okay.
All right. Fabulous.
You work your way back here. So again, we've covered item 7.1, the financial presentation. We're now going to take action. I'm going to accept looking for a motion to approve agenda item 7.2, the July 2023 financial report, item 7.3, the permanent appropriations that Mr. Drew just went over, and then 7.4, you have some recommended fund transfers.
I didn't mention, is there a question on that funds transfer? Essentially, it was inactive student account, student activity account that the advisor, and that's kind of typical practice, hey, the program's no longer existing, here's what they want to do with it. So.
All right, can I have
I so move.
Second,
Ms. Larimer, Ms. Eubank? And roll call, please.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
yes.
Dr. Reffert,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Agenda item 8.
Take a break.
Okay.
We take a 5-minute.
I'm getting the high sign to take a 5-minute break. We will be on break. We will reconvene we'll make it a 10-minute break, reconvene at 7 o'clock. Thank you for that. We are back in session. Next item 8, board committee reports. We'll go a little bit out of order here. Just Ms. Eubank, anything additional from the finance committee meeting from last week?
No, I think Randy did a very thorough job today. Thank you. And nothing further. Anything from you, Eric?
No?
Okay.
You know, if you want, I will talk less and let you guys report more.
Quite
You do
content
such
with
a
the
great
way we
job.
have this worked out right now. Thank you, though, for that offer. Okay, 8:11, the Operations Committee. Ms. Larimer?
Okay, well, so we didn't meet over the summer, mainly because the guys are too busy. And so we got an information dump when we met the other day. James did a good job of highlighting all the things on there. We kind of basically talked about transportation. There is a new app that was launched to allow parents to see more information about the buses and bus routes, and that sounds really, really interesting. I teased her and saying, it sounds like we've reached the Jetson time zone here, because it's push a button and boom, everything's happening. Food service, Denise is rocking it out. She's fully staffed for the year, though I did see something come through earlier today. So at the time of the meeting, we were fully staffed. She is turning the high school into like a mini college campus as far as their food service. So I think it's going to be, if we can get over there sometime and have lunch to see it in actual operation. We saw some of it, of what she does at the opener, which was fabulous. She has managed to take all the gobbledygook that the feds dump on her and say, this is allowed, this isn't allowed, you want to be reimbursed, then you got to do this and this. She's taken all of that and turned it from cardboard into really good food. And I don't know how she's doing that, but the kids are excited, and she's really pleased. One thing that I did want to make note of is that Medicaid is now accepted to the lunch program. So any of our listeners that are on Medicaid, get in touch with her, because that's accepted into our lunch. Technology, oh my gosh, get Brent going and off he goes. He handed out over 700 laptops. And they've got new insurance. Believe it or not, you have to have insurance for cyber use now. So we've got new insurance for that, which is cutting our costs way down. Let's see, what was the other thing?
Hey, Sue, if I could interject there.
Yeah.
The cyber insurance costs are down because of a lot of the technology investments that Mr. Schaefer has put in. So we're
Okay.
doing a lot of things that makes us more insurable.
Well,
Safer driver, in other words.
Oh, gotcha,
as well as
okay.
the additional training the staff are going through, too.
The know before training, and
Oh, that's right, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, I did
so
forget
it's
about
not
that.
an accident, but we are all trying to be safer drivers.
So, to the staff that are out there watching, every time you get asked to do know before training, know that helps reduce our costs in the district. So it is appreciated.
Let's see. So if you went to the football game Friday, you probably saw some of the things that they've been doing there, but hand painting the bleachers because that was the best way to do it. You've seen the roof projects going on. Stadium bathrooms are finally being completed. These are all, that's one of the things, isn't it, Tom, that they were hoping will get reimbursed if the levy goes through? Let's see. Oh, a big project is the replacement of the LED lights. So they want to get LED lights throughout the entire district, which will save us some money.
And James didn't know this, but I will tell you now that lighting project, we didn't know what would happen with energy rebates, but we're getting probably a $50,000 rebate on that project.
Awesome. Okay. Way to go. Let's see. So some of these, a lot of this stuff is self-explanatory, so I don't want to belabor a point. Oh, he was talking about the new trailers that he bought, and that's not portables, it's trailers, just from recycling money. So as they've been recycling things, they've been saving the pot, and they were able to buy 2 trailers from that money, which I think is so cool. And of course, he was talking about the robotic paint sprayer, which I thought, okay, so that's like, honestly, it's kind of like your little house vacuum thing that's going up and down. Yes, the Roomba, that's it. Yeah. So it kind of looks like this little rectangular thing on wheels. They can program it, and you think, okay, so it's a fun tech toy, and they're probably all having fun with it. And why did we do that? Because it's saving us thousands of dollars in costs, in supplies, because while our guys would be putting lines out on the fields at, I don't know, 10 cans of paint, this little dude can come along and do it in half a can. I mean, it's ridiculous the amount of
Putting guys out of work.
savings that it does on material usage. Plus, it does it in a lot less time. And while it's out there doing its little thing, because they're on their phones telling it where to go and making its little grid map for it to go and do its thing, the guys can be out doing things that a little Roomba thing can't do. So it's saving so much. I mean, it just, the benefits of this little toy, and I use that as a tease, were profound. So kudos to them for finding such a really neat thing. So that was operations for, 3 months and 3 minutes, I guess.
Well done.
Question, is the GPS software, we've had software on the buses for a while. Is it new or updated or?
Yeah, as I understood it, this was much better. The old software, remember, it was really glitchy. And I'm thinking of what it did to Saddlebrook. It just couldn't handle Saddlebrook. Saddlebrook just totally befuddled it. And this one not only has a cost savings to it, but it's better all the way around, and it's more user-friendly, right, Tom? And it works with our data systems, whereas the other one just didn't want to play, even though they said that it would, and it didn't.
Well, I think the platform allows for better hardware to be put into the buses too. You can see the comment about the tablets there. This will allow tablets rather than running them off of, say, phones that are sitting in people's laps. So
Yeah.
it'll increase bus driver safety as well.
Okay.
And it allows for all of that information to be pre-programmed in, so if you've got a sub-driver, he or she doesn't have to worry about where they're going or what they're going to do. All that information is right there for them. They know who's going to be at every stop. They can check. And now they haven't started the card scanning yet, have they?
No.
No. Okay. So the bus driver will be able to more accurately know who gets off at what stop, who gets picked up at what stop, and what stop is the next one to go to, rather than, well, my kid didn't get dropped off, there was a sub. The chances of that happening have been greatly reduced with this new software.
Yeah, and the iPad technology is really cool because they'll be able to mount it up where the bus driver can see it, but as soon as the bus is engaged, and it goes blank. It's still on, but it goes blank, so it only turns on when the bus is stopped. So no distracted driving.
Mm-hmm. And was that the LED, was that part of the lease?
Yes,
Yeah,
the LED is
lighting.
the LED project and the boilers and chillers for the high school are all part of that lease,
Yeah.
which we hope that the boilers and chillers part will fund it from the bond issue when it passes.
Okay, thank you. Next, Curriculum Committee, Mr. Pullman.
Sure. If you've all got the notes in front of you, well-defined information. I know Mr. Bennington, Mr. Hosser, and I, and Mr. Schwartzmiller met till about noon on 25 things that happened in 22, 23. And every time we have a meeting, I still have to go back through and SEL, HQSD, ELA, MTSS, HQD. Finally, I got this one, BGSU. I figured out what that one was. But anyway, there's so many acronyms. But if you look at the top 25 things that took place in 23, 24, or actually 22, 23, one of the things that all of this is leading up to is academic performance. So one of the things that Mr. Schwartzmiller pointed out that the AP scores have just been fantastic, and we saw that earlier with Mr. Hassler's report. And students' participation in the National Merit Scholarship is higher than ever has been. And also the, it's not out yet, but performance index scores on the testing, we're looking to do as well, if not better, than we have in the past. So he would say, as he mentioned to us, we're on a rebound for academic performance. I also have in front of me, and Mr. Bennington also has, what they put together was a curriculum review handbook. So as they go back and review the curriculum, all the steps it takes, they started putting together a handbook, and you're willing, if you'd like to take this and read it, look through it. But it's just not something that they do overnight. It's a long process, as you can see. And then he talked about the top 5 challenges for 23-24 as we move forward for the school year. It's all there in front of you. Any questions you can ask me later or ask me now. Or Mr. Bennington.
You know, I was thinking about that National Scholar thing. Wouldn't we increase automatically as we get more students? I mean, when you compare
They
it to
don't do as
Ottawa
well.
Hills, like, they don't have as many students as we have.
Well, if
I guess when I was looking at that graph, it didn't, like, necessarily, we have more students, so
Well, yeah, but they're achieving.
percentage.
They're achieving well. So if you have more students, what if half of them didn't achieve as well? Then you wouldn't have the high scores.
Well,
So
to say
the
we've
numbers
had
do-
more, we've had more every year because we've had more students. I mean, that,
But if that,
you
if
say that too.
if that were the case, then bigger high schools than us, Whitmer would be, you know, I mean, they're larger than we are. So if you followed that through, Findlay is another big school, you'd see them, and they're not getting the students that we have. So
Yeah.
it's not, because you're bigger doesn't automatically mean that your students are achieving more. So that's,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's worth something celebrating. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, 2 years ago, I think we heard people come into this room and say the days of us having National Merit Scholars are over, and that is far from the truth. So
Yeah.
kudos to this district that has, you know, that didn't happen, and in fact, it has improved since COVID, so good
Those
stuff.
AP scores and the PI. Yeah, that PI score. Way to go, Mr. Swartzmiller.
Okay, there was no policy committee, communications committee. Mrs. Eubank or Ms. Larimer?
You want to go, Kelly?
Well, let's, we discussed the, starting back to school and everything that entails into the details of starting back to school. Final forms, I made a comment about final forms. If you had a child in athletics, pretty much you were familiar with final forms, at least at the high school, but that has gotten revamped, and I think there was a little confusion with now this year, everybody had to do final forms, even if you are an existing student. So,
And also that a lot of the back-to-school information that parents might need has been
Streamlined.
redirected to the handbook, which is online, and now we've got, I can't even imagine, this is a Herculean task to me, the one handbook that covers everything online, which is really kind of cool because it's hyperlinked, so you can go, if you're looking here, then you can suddenly flip over to there, and you can go back and forth much more easily than what it was before. So just a really, really nice addition.
Okay, thank you. Any other committee reports or?
I just wanted to brag a little bit from Pupil Services, the facility dogs. The original plan was to have that completed in, maybe 8 years, that all the buildings would have pups, but now it's going to be done within 5 years. There's been a collaboration between Circletail and the Ability Center, and with those two now helping us, it's going to become a reality much more quickly. And obviously it's doing what we hoped it would do, so kind of excited about that. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Pupil Services? Okay, I just had to brag on the facility dogs.
Technically, it's a superintendent's committee now.
It is a superintendent's
So
committee,
yes,
but
the facility dogs are pretty,
yeah.
those are pretty cool.
And you know, PSF does help with that a lot, as what they can. And I don't know.
Okay, we're going to keep moving then. Thank you. Item 9, consent agenda. Our consent agenda is going to cover items 9 through 14 of the agenda.
I have a question about the policy. If we
Well, Ms.
pass,
Larimer, could we take a motion in a second first and then discussion?
well, that was my question. When do I ask my question?
Give me a motion to accept the consent, and we'll move to your discussion.
Okay. there you
So
go.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Pullman, Dr. Reffert, and Ms. Larimer, would you like to discuss anything in the consent agenda?
Well, golly, you know what, I would. In the policies, I had to, there's a scuttlebutt going on about this policies, changes from Neola through a large group in the state. And actually, we were alerted to that during the summer. And it didn't get brought up in the first reading. So I got some clarification about that today. So Neola, not as a policy per se, but as a procedural thing, as new policies come up and or are reviewed, they want to remove all gender identifying pronouns and make them gender neutral. Okay, so my knee-jerk reaction to that was no. Stop messing with the English language. And then I thought, well, how are you going to do that with Romance languages? That's like impossible. You'd be erasing almost all of the Romance languages. But at the same time, I can see that's the yin of it. Then the yang of it is that whenever I'm writing professional papers in APA format, you do not use gender identifying pronouns because they can be student identifying or subject identifying, as in subject in research identifying. So I understand why it's that way. There are many school districts in Ohio that are accepting these policy changes, but denying Neola's requirement that all gender pronouns be removed because it's a procedure and not a policy.
And kind of interject something too
Please.
on that. So Neola and OSBA are the two big policy groups in Ohio. But remember, their policies are recommendations based on their attorneys' recommendations. In the end, it's the 5 of you decide what the policies are. Okay, so you can take Neola's recommendations or not. And I know some school districts who are not at all, but they also get themselves in trouble because they have to rely on their own legal counsel. So to Ms. Larimer's point is these things come out there, it ends up being for this board to decide, you know, Neola is always going to take the most conservative approach because, like most of us, they're lawsuit adverse, right? Right. And so I just want to point that out because we've had that discussion in my world too.
So as I look at this, I don't see anything more than changing his/her to the students, or changing.
That's been going on for a while, though. It's not just
that's
this
what
one.
I'm saying. I'm not
it's
sure
been-
what
Last year it was happening, too.
students to students, or it says excluded unless his/her is crossed out. Their, THEIR. I mean, that's not really. To
That's
me,
correct English, yeah.
It's just students, their, it's not saying
Yeah.
anything else. It's throughout the word his/her. That just
Yeah,
toss that
wherever
out.
those are going to be, those will be removed and placed with non-gender identifying pronouns.
We've already
So I
started
wanted
that.
you to be aware that that's what is going on here, and I was bringing that forward because I didn't know if that was something that you wanted to go ahead and accept, or if you want the gender identifying pronouns in there, because I think we've always said his or hers,
We have.
or, you know, something like that. We haven't just, I mean, we advanced to the hers, It used to be just his, probably. So I just wanted y'all to be aware that that's in there, and if you wanted to
So Sue, if I read the
keep those pronouns,
I read the
then we
statement-
need to make an action to do that. If not, then we can go ahead and accept this carte blanche as it is.
We had already
Mrs.
started
Lambert,
that.
what I see here, like, says the superintendent may, comma, in his, her, scratch, it's now there. So the superintendent may, in their sole judgment, or the students versus his, her, I don't see anything that is, in my opinion, is different or bad. They just tossed
Right.
out the word his or her.
That-
So
not
why did they,
in-
my
not
point
in
is,
these
why did they put that in the
necessarily.
first place? Why do you have to have his or her? Just students, plural, that's everybody, or their judgment, that could be whoever's the superintendent. I mean, I'm just looking at, I'm trying to go through as quick as I can. I'd read this before many times, but do you have specific, is there a specific concern
Well, I
besides
guess
just the word
if,
there?
if I may to that point procedurally, we've accepted this consent agenda in its entirety. Are we looking for a motion to pull this out for a
Well,
separate vote?
that's what I just didn't know if y'all were aware that that is going to be the procedure from now on, if you wanted that pulled so that you could do what some of the other districts in Ohio have done, or if you want, because like what you're saying, Ray, what the examples that you're giving here are not objectionable. I mean, they're professional, they're APA format, and I can see that that's maybe why they're trying to do that, but there are a significant amount of districts in Ohio that are objecting to it, so that's why I was bringing this forward in case y'all didn't know and you wanted to talk about it. If it's not an issue, then we can move forward. That's why I was bringing it forward.
So I thought we had already started doing that, because I do recall actually asking, I think in a work session or here, to make sure that all of it was changed to gender neutral, because there and they is an acceptable formal or acceptable singular usage, as I still hold my 7 to 12 English license. I always took umbrage as his/hers. Why wasn't it always hers/his? You know, just like we would get things in the mail that would say, you know, Mrs. Randall Ruffert. What happened to my first name? But they is, yeah, I thought we had already done that with some of them, because I did point some out that we missed a few, that it should be students or it should be something else.
We have, yeah, for a while it's been changing.
I don't know why people would take offense to that, but I'm going to guess they're smaller districts. You know, and again, I find that that we're more inclusive and more accepting, and I would prefer to keep it as they versus his/hers, because some people, that's the pronoun that they choose regardless or not, and that's not really what it is, but it is an acceptable singular pronoun when using they.
So
So-
basically, I'm saying, if there's no objections, I just wanted you to be aware, if there's no objections, then we can certainly move on. But if you didn't know and you want to talk about it, then now's the time to do it before we accept the second reading.
Well, I haven't heard a call to pull this out of the
No.
consent agenda for vote.
No, I appreciate you discussing it and talking about it. I mean, it has been going on. This isn't like the only time we've ever updated these. I know before we updated where it said, you know, the change of the pronoun, but
Okay, then if
I mean-
there's no problem with it,
no
then we can move
objection.
on.
But
We'll find out when we do roll call here.
And it's interesting how, you know, going back to the history, there was a time in the English language, because the language does evolve and change, you know. So there was a time when thee, thou, and you were the three,
Yes.
and there was a huge debate about using you. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think the Quakers, like, were up in arms about it and refused because of somehow it was connected to the religion. I apologize to any Quakers for not knowing the history there, but there's been times where things have evolved, and as someone pointed out, when you're not sure of the person's gender, using they or, you know, them is acceptable. And if somebody cuts you off in traffic, you yell and say, look what they did. You don't say she/he did with their car. So it's an evolution, and certainly there's a lot of attention and focus on it for other reasons. But it's something that has been part of a academic conversation as APA has changed. I think back in 2015, 16, 17, somewhere in there, Oxford language changed, what the dictionary. So it's been an ongoing thing, but certainly there's more, appreciate you bringing that up, and
Okay.
there's more attention to it for other reasons now. So
Yeah, I bet you 10 years ago, it was never him or her, or they changed it to him or her. No, it's just things cycle in and out, right? So we're at the cycle for students and them and they.
Thank you for the discussion. Mr. Drury, roll call, please.
Mr. Pullman,
Yes.
Dr. Ruffert,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mr. Bennington.
Yes. Next item on the agenda, any new business to be brought forward to the board?
I would like to ask Mr. Hostler, I've had a few community members reach out about LifeWise and the flyer that was sent out, and I'm just asking if it's possible, as we look at this and, kind of get an idea of how much time our administrators and staff and employees are going to be spending on this, just to see how it is affecting the school day. Because obviously it's for younger kids, but we all know that it's like herding cats, and you can't just let a kindergartner walk out of the building. So I'm a little concerned about the amount of time, and I would like to see how that is affecting the school day, because it's, my personal opinion is that every single subject that we do, even lunch, is important in the school day, and to miss any of that during the day, I'd like to kind of see where that is in a couple months, maybe at the end of the first quarter, just to see if you're able to get us a report about the amount of time. I would appreciate that.
October, I was going to ask.
Yeah, October is the end of
meeting?
first quarter. Can we not, we just started school, can we not talk about that?
And just a point of clarification, there's a flyer that went out, was an e-flyer. So the district was not using school resources to send out a flyer. It's something that anybody, business, e-flyers are kind of a public forum, so the district didn't send that out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it
we
is
all got an email. I was in between appointments and I wasn't reading it carefully, but a person wrote today, and I thought it was one of the regional directors for LifeWise because they had the same first name. So once I got on the same page, it was saying that there might be concerns from parents, and I don't know if people don't understand that this is a totally voluntary program, that the parents have to sign their kids up to do this if they want to do it. So it's a parent choice to do this additional curricular thing. Do they go every week or once a month? Now I forgot how often they go.
I'd have to take a look at
Yeah,
what the plan is.
I don't know why
Yeah.
I'm blanking out on that, but it is totally parent choice if they want to do it. It's just another option.
But it still does involve a lot of time during the day, which I would like to see that, and thank you for that clarification, Mr. Hostler. I know what the e-flyers are, some people don't, and thank you for
Yep.
clarifying that for the
Thanks.
masses.
Yeah, yeah.
Any other new business to bring forward? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ruffert. Public participation, we do not have anyone signed up for this session. So final item, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Dr.
Second.
Ruffert, Mrs. Eubank, roll call, please.
Dr. Ruffert,
Yes.
Mrs. Eubank,
Yes.
Ms. Larimer,
Yes.
Mr. Pullman, Mr. Bennington.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.